Ann. I think that's the second time he's ever done that. The most affectionate man in the world. First time he did it, he was drunk. So, well done there. Took a lot out of him there to say that. A nice easy start actually. First thing I want to say is Paddy's wife Victoria, it's her birthday today. She's 25 plus that. So we wish her, a lot of you know Paddy from the Stag. I wish her a happy birthday and sing a happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Victoria. Happy birthday to you. Well, I guess Colin and me have been best friends since like day one. I mean, he's much older than me, but when I was born, we were best friends from that day. He's always been a very best mate. We did everything together, as I said. I'm not going to put it as poetic as he did, with the yin and yang, but we've done everything together. We went to go to school together. We did the juniors out at the same time. We got the same results. We did the leavers out at the same time. I beat him in the points, though. Just by a few, though. We went to college. We did the same thing with the same results every year, mainly because we cheated together. We did the same masters. It's kind of odd actually, it is a bit bizarre. We travelled together, we've been everywhere together, we've been all over the world, we've been to did the J1 together, we've been all around Thailand, Australia, everything else. So there's a lot of dirt, really, there's a lot of stories to tell. No, I'm honoured to be best man today, and to be at his side today. Really, he's my best mate, he always has been, and it's been a great day. The hotel's been brilliant. I'm really impressed with the gospel choir, which is a surprise to me until last night. I've always been pushing for it. I mean, I kind of brought them to a gospel choir and stuff, but they never told me to actually get one, so looking forward to the band later on. And I'm just kind of glad I haven't been, well enough or anything so far. When Ann came down the aisle earlier on, she was kind of crying, and I was like, not that I'll ever admit that ever again, but I was. My mother was so worried about crying. She said that 20 years ago she went to a wedding and she started crying and she couldn't stop. And then she started everybody else crying. So she was popping Valium before she went to the church. And she was talking to Ann, Col's mother there during the week, and she said, are you worried about the wedding? And I was like, very excited. And I was like, do you want a pill? Do you want a pill? I managed to get through this so far without any enhancements. So that's good. So I mean, I've been trying to decide what stories I tell, and some of them are kind of off limits, and I'm told, not to say anything too bad. There was one story I kind of wanted to tell, which was the time that back in 2001 when M&M was really big. Myself and Colin decided it would be a really great idea if we went and got our hair bleached blonde. Oh yeah. So we went in, and I think it took me like 7 goes at the bleach and another 8 goes at the whitener to get it done. Like just burning the head off yourself. And the same with Colin. We went out at 11 o'clock one night, and it came out kind of a, how do you say that, kind of piss yellow. Kind of a nice hue. And so we were going off to Hersonis in Crete for a holiday. Actually, everybody on the holiday is here tonight, years later, which is probably a good sign. And we went to the airport, and Dara had done all the organising well on that, and we walked up, and there was 6 of us on the holidays, and there was 4 of us went in, checked in, no problem. We haven't called kind of last in the queue among the lads, and you kind of got confused, kind of flustered, and he said like, oh, you're in a different flight, you're flying out tonight. So like, oh, shit. So we sent one of the bags off, and we said, well, there's no point in getting annoyed about it. Head off into Dublin for the day, come back that night to go on the plane. So we came back at 8 o'clock that night, a few hours later, and we're at the board and we're looking up, we're looking for A123, and we're looking for the flight number, and it's not there, so there's kind of the crowd around us, we're looking up, we said, oh, the 27th was yesterday. So panicking now, we paid like a life savings out to go on this 2 weeks holidays with the lads. My brother, who hasn't met 2 of the lads he's on holidays with, is now sitting in Crete with these lads, hadn't met 2 of them, and so we called, what are we do now? So we'll work it out. So we're down at the Air Arena desk, and we're trying to work out, is there a way to get from Dublin to Hersonis in Crete, like in the next few days? Is it possible? We called the agency, will they even be able to get us on a flight? So we're in the kind of queue, and there's this old ignorant old box behind us, he's kind of giving us shit, and he's kind of going, I'm flying to Manchester, I'm before you, I'm flying business class. And Col's a bit of a hot head on him sometimes, you know, very, very rare, but he flips, you know, he turns around and he starts giving this guy all sorts of abuse. Like, I'm here since this morning, I don't give a shit about your flight, I don't care if you're business class, like, just almost going for him, like, really tore into him. I'm kind of watching this. That's Alex Higgins. Oh no, it's my childhood hero, just insulted my childhood hero. So, Jesus, I was going to the desk and I was kind of talking to a woman and he's still behind us, he's still behind us. So, Alex the woman beside us becomes free, the next desk, and Alex Higgins has to come along and walk behind us to go over to the next desk. Now bear in mind we're here and we've got bleached blonde hair with big black eyebrows and we're kind of shaping, you know, we've got a denim jacket on and we're kind of like, we're trying to look cool and dressed in nines, and Alex Higgins walks behind us and as he goes, he just goes, fucking faggots. Childhood hero. He's been mercifully insulted by his own childhood hero. How do you do that? So we go and we talk our way onto a plane from a different agency. We go to Kos, we sleep rough, we get a ferry to Rhodes. We're kind of wondering, we'll try and get tours or Renaissance, you know, we're not going to miss this holiday, it kills us, you know. And from Rhodes we ring up the agency and we get a flight from there that afternoon to Crete, to Athens, and then on to Crete. So we arrived 24 hours after the lads, you know, we come in dejected, you know, really wet. And the lads were like, oh, having a great time, you know, they're a day into their holiday. So of course the first thing we tell them is the story and the Alex Higgins thing and the fucking faggots and all that. And so for the next 2 weeks we're known as the 2 Fs. So everywhere we go, oh, we're the 2 Fs, oh, we're still getting ready, you know. So, this goes on for 2 weeks, and that's grand, like, so we get home, and we come home, and the first thing is, Dad says, like, what happened, right? Grand, and tell the story. Oh, and Alex Higgins, I tell the story with Alex Higgins. And my dad thinks it's the funniest thing he's ever heard in his whole life, you know, so word just kind of spreads, and half of Ireland has heard this story, but the two of us getting insulted by Alex Higgins. So the end of the story is that a few weeks later, Col's out playing a tennis tournament in Benistan. And he's walking out onto the pitch or the court, whatever it's called. And TV is sport. So he's walking out anyway, and there's about 100 people lined up in kind of benches on the side, you know. And among them is the parish priest and the man who organises the sacristy and the altar boys and all that in Laytown Church. So Col's walking on, and the man pipes up and he goes, Cooney, Cooney! There's the priest and your man. He goes, I heard about you, effing faggot. I can only get over that, you know. So shortly afterwards, we were off to Australia together, of course, and a year later, come home. I went back out there, and Col came home and took the job in DKIT, the fateful decision where he met Ann. So. About 4 years later, I guess, Col wouldn't like to admit how long he's been out on, but a couple of years later, anyway, comes back to 2006, and I'm coming home from Australia. Now, Col has broken his leg, or broken his ankle, or something. Was his knee? Was your leg? Knee? What was it? Knee. And so Anne has him to herself. He's caged in like that movie Misery, you know. He's in the house. He's not going anywhere. And Anne has him all to herself there. And of course I'm coming back, and this is looming on Anne's thoughts, you know, like this is when I was going to come back now, we'll be off gallivanting around the place, and that's the end of that, you know. But of course the leg got better, and the unthinkable didn't happen, and of course she kept them, so it was all good, you know. See, this wouldn't have fit into Anne's 5-year plan, so I hear a few laughs, because that's it's a real thing. But I remember about a year into this, so back from Australia, and one day Col was doing something odd. He's kind of an odd character.